Hey everyone, this is Joshua Edley. Now, while doing my short film, I unfortunately ended up getting really ill. It was not a really good experience. During my recovery though, I ended up really getting into Bioshock. So when I was much better, I decided to do some modeling project involving Bioshock. I figured I needed to do another project to keep my skills sharp. So I decided I was going to do a Big Daddy as both a personal blender challenge and experiment. I did something I called a 15-hour Blender Big Daddy challenge. So for this challenge I had 15 hours. Throughout that time I had to make the designs which I would do in the first 2 hours, make the model, and fully texture it. For this project, I decided to do the iconic bouncer, but it would be my own spin to it. The only thing I don't include in the 15 hours is the rigging. I decided I would do that after the challenge. With that all said, here's how the first sessions went. First thing I needed to do was to create reference of the Big Daddy, so I looked around Google for images of these dangerous protectors. Then I placed them all onto a mood board. After that, the next step was to examine them and create the concept. When it came to making the designs, I decided to do quick sketches as I want to make as many as I can. This did mean that the drawings I did are not up to my standards. Usually I would like to take my time to make these drawings. Since I'm going to be making a model of this, I considered this a sacrifice worth committing. First things first was me mapping out the design. I did this by choosing random colours to create the framework. This would allow me to get a good idea of what I'm drawing. As I was drawing out my design, I would constantly go to my mood board for reference so that I would know the details I'm making. I wanted to be 90% accurate of how the Big Daddy looks like, but I also wanted the remaining 10% to add my little spin to it. Next to do was outlining the entire image, so I merged the map layers, lowered the opacity, and drew out the design. Concept 2, I did the same design for the front with the same process, rinse and repeat. I really enjoyed adding these little small details that created character. This design alone took near an hour to do, so my next concept I had to do things differently due to those constraints. By the end of the session, I ended up with 2 designs. Next day, I had a look at the designs I made. I like both concepts, but I can only do one, and since I liked the first one more, I decided to do that one. And the next one, I'm probably gonna do as an art piece. Well, I started modeling the Big Daddy in Blender, then I realized I forgot to put the 2-hour timer on. Wonderful. So I started the project again and put the timer on this time. I started by doing the head, and I did that by adding a sphere and cutting it in half twice. Then adding the mirror modifier so I can do half of the work. This I would also do with the body. Style-wise, I'm looking to do a Big Daddy in low poly as I felt it worked for the design I want to do. Both head and body are done as separate objects as it would help when it comes to texturing. I would make the arms and legs bigger than they needed to be, okay? But once I finish the body, I will shrink them to the right size.
To give me your loyalty, 'cause I'm taking the world, you'll see. They'll be calling me, they'll be calling me royalty. Best to give me your loyalty, 'cause I'm taking the world, you'll see. They'll be calling me royalty.
After sometimes modeling and adding objects, I ended up with this. The model is more or less done. The real tricky part for me was doing the bars in front of the Big Daddy's head. Other than that, I'm happy with it. That is another 2 hours done. The first thing I did before unwrapping was adjust the size of the drill because I felt like it did not look big enough. Then it was time to set up the UV grid and begin unwrapping. Now I'm going to be frankly honest, my intention was to unwrap the model, then texture a base colour. I managed to do some of that, but just barely. Unwrapping this model for me was like self-torture at times. Anything wrong that could happen, did happen. Especially when doing the hand was the most bothersome. However, I managed to get this all done and started texturing the head. Every time I did a session, I would log what was done on that day. This was helpful for me to see how much I had done in the challenge so far. Overall, I did 2 hours per day. At this point, the model is not finished, but I had done around 6 hours of work so far, most of that being modeling and unwrapping. The next sessions will be texturing and finishing it up. How did that go? Well, I'll let you know next episode. But for now, this is Joshua Edley, and I'll see you later.